thank you for coming today, and thank you to our sponsors, including the BSC Group, Instrumentation Laboratory, and the Belfort Group. I appreciate your support, and we couldn't have this meeting without you. We also couldn't have the meeting without our panel, so thank you to our panelists, including Julie DiMartino from EMD Serrano, John Moscow from EMD Millipore, Roger Palferman from UCB. Roger, I knew you'd be there by the time I got to you. Thank you for joining us. Yvette Hillel from Lantheus Medical, Jessica Levesque from Instrumentation Laboratory, Phil Sisson from Middlesex Community College, and Julie Chen from UMass-Lowell. And so I look forward to meeting we will be meeting everybody in just a few minutes, but first I'd like to introduce our moderator, Bob Coughlin, the president and CEO of Mass Biotech Council. And Bob, thank you for joining us and moderating today's panel. And I was going to do a more in-depth introduction of you, but after our prep meeting last week, it was clear that I couldn't match your level of enthusiasm just in general, let alone your passion for MassBio. So I thought it's probably best for all of us to let you, excuse me, update us on the work that's happening at MassBio. And then we're going to take this down so then we can kick off the discussion, and thank you for helping to lead the discussion. So thank you, welcome, and I think we'll hand it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie. How about a big round of applause for Stephanie Cronin and the Middlesex Coalition?
That's what we miss from these virtual meetings, don't we?
No, they clap, and we can't see them right now, but we know they're clapping out there. Folks, I'm so excited to be here with all of you today, and thank you for having me. And Stephanie, in all seriousness, thank you so much for everything that you and the team at Middlesex 3 Coalition does. And let me start off by telling you what I'm most excited about. Any day that I get to do something, and I used to say pre-COVID-19, any day that I get to spend time outside of Kendall Square and outside of the city of Boston, I'm very happy, because from an economic development sense, sprawl is healthy for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. How much more can you pile up in Kendall Square, right? And we're going to talk about that. Real briefly about the Massachusetts Biotechnology Council. I've been on board here now for over 13 years. MassBio was the first biotech trade association founded in the world, and it was founded for two reasons. One, so that the 6 charter members could hire a policy person to explain to elected officials what the meaning of genetic engineering was and how there were bylaws and ordinances that really weren't conducive to innovation, okay? This was a new industry. Large molecule drugs, biotech, a little bit different than pharma, okay? So those companies got together to hire that person to educate, and then also run a purchasing consortium so that they could use their volume to buy in bulk. Even though they were competing in the world of innovation, they wanted to benefit from collective buying power. That still happens today, but we've grown so much. Their goal, the founders, when I talk to them still to this day, their goal was to have 30 member companies. Today we have over 1,300, about 1,350 member companies, and we're one of the largest life sciences trade associations in the world. Real briefly, I think our mission is to ensure that government, academia, and industry all work together so that we can create that environment that promotes innovation. Why am I so insanely serious about it and passionate about it? Because 18 years ago, when I was in the House of Representatives, my wife and I had our 3rd child with cystic fibrosis. We didn't think he'd live to be 5 years old. Today, he's 18 years old. He's a freshman in college, remotely obviously, and he's thriving because of a medicine that took 18 years and over $13 billion to invent by Vertex Pharmaceuticals. So people often say, why are you so passionate about this industry? You're not a doctor, you're not a scientist. I respond back by saying, I am a political science, I know government, and I know that government can do things that are good for innovation or things that are bad for innovation, because my son's life depended on it. And each and every one of you know and love somebody who is experiencing an unmet medical need. And if you want them to have hope, and if you want them to live longer and have a better quality of life, it's this industry that'll do it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. How are we going to get out of this pandemic? None of us ever thought that the most important thing to the world's economy was going to be a virus. Well, it is. Right? A vaccine to a virus, right? We're going to invent that vaccine. So science will get us out of it. And we're going to talk a lot right now. This panel is going to talk about industry, why they've grown in your region, and then we're going to talk about talent and why talent is the most important resource that we have in Massachusetts. To be home of over 115 colleges and universities, that's why we're the best place in the world for this. It's not because traffic was good pre-COVID, right? It was horrible. It's not because the weather was good. The weather's even worse, folks, and it's going to continue to be that way. Why do we continue to win? It's because of the talent, and we need to continue to focus on it, because when you're on top, ladies and gentlemen, you're either going to stay on top or you're not. And the decision is for us to stay on top. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens by meetings like this and people doing the work that we do each and every day. Let's talk quickly about the Middlesex region. It's a great cluster for the life sciences. It's got prime locations for companies to expand or open facilities because of the economic development teams that are located there who understand this industry, and they're committed to growing the life sciences. Lexington, Burlington, Bedford, Billerica, Chelmsford, Westford, Tewksbury, Lowell, Tingsboro, Carlisle. Most of these communities are already gold or platinum bio-ready communities. The success speaks for itself, right? You're already successful. We're talking about how to become more successful today. 72 MassBio member companies are located in those communities. When I was running the query to see what that was going to look like, I was thinking maybe a couple dozen. 72, right? In Massachusetts, if we want to stay the best place in the world for the life sciences, we need to continue to avoid future shortages like we've experienced with PPE as a result of COVID-19. How are we going to make sure that we have API, drug substance, drugs that are here? Our supply chain has relied way too much on other parts of the world, that this pandemic has really shined a light on the fact that we got to do more here. Your region, I think we're going to continue, I know we're going to continue to grow in biomanufacturing, and the region along Route 3 is the best place in the Commonwealth to do that. Okay, we know that. So when you look at how you're primed for further growth, why? I already said it. You can't continue to build more in Cambridge. It's too expensive anyway. You need to start building these facilities where the people live, right? Traffic's going to be an issue again, ladies and gentlemen. So when you look at the resources, more office and lab space at a lower cost, proximity to where employees live, the economic benefits to living in those suburbs, to live, work, play, that's the direction the industry's moving in. I'm not making it up. I'm seeing it. You look at things like Project Golf and Project Mustang and Project Dragonfly and the Ultragenics news that's happening in Bedford. This isn't a joke. It's really, really happening. So we're going to talk about all this. I think we have an amazing I know we have an amazing panel. We're going to get right into that. We're going to hear from the panelists. We're going to hear from the folks in academia or after the folks from industry. And then when we wrap up, folks, we're going to have Q&A period. I'm going to manage it. You just throw questions in the chat box. And from 1 to 1:30, we're not going to have all the panelists with us, but we will have representation. We'll do some Q&A there, and we'll have everybody back to work to go solve unmet medical need at 1:30 because the patients are waiting, right? And again, not being a doctor, not being a scientist, I have the best job in the world where I was able to help my own son and everybody else who is sick have therapies that's going to keep them alive. And I don't think there's a more noble profession in the world to that. So why don't we go now? We're going to go to our speakers to you guys introduce yourself, take 3 to 4 minutes to provide a brief background about yourself, your company, and tell us what you're doing in the region. Is there opportunity for expansion, past, present, future, why, and anything else that might be of interest. And then we'll just go from there and we'll jump into the questions. Why don't we start with Julia DiMartino from EMD Serono.
What a pleasure to be able to join you today in the coalition, to be able to have this leadership discussion. I can only hope in the next 3 to 4 minutes to show that we echo your purpose, we echo your passion. You are preaching to the converted for EMD Serono, who has been a fixture in the area for now going on 40 years. So I think before I introduce myself, I need to introduce my company because we have representation for more than one of us here, and that's for good reason. So EMD Serono is actually part of a larger global company known as Merck KGaA, based in Darmstadt, Germany. So what I can tell you is that founded in 1668, we are the oldest pharma science and technology company in the world. And in the US, we're actually comprised of 3 businesses. EMD Serono is the healthcare aspect, pharma-focused, medicines-focused. So speaking very much to the reason that you yourself are involved in this mission. Millipore Sigma, and my colleague John Moscow is joining us, is the life science division, focused on tools and application for science. And EMD performance materials are focused more on innovative materials, most prototypically for the company, liquid crystals. So every time you picked up your phone, looked at your television, used your computer, Merck was part of your life, EMD Serono was part of your life in that circumstance. Now moving more even to things that you can't see so visibly, semiconductors, and the components that make those devices go faster, quicker, better in that context. So EMD Serono in healthcare it has been devoted in this area for, as I said, 40 years. We have bases in Rockland, which is mostly our commercial organization, and in Billerica, which by far and away employs most of the 1,500 employees in Massachusetts. In 2019, we made further commitment to a $70 million expansion on our Billerica R&D facility, and that facility will be 145,000 square feet and house 400 scientists and collaborative workspace employees. And I have to say, our work really wouldn't be possible without the passion of our employees who are empowered to achieve our mission, which is to positively impact people with difficult to treat diseases. These include historically multiple sclerosis, more recently cancer, and also COVID-19 pneumonia. So we're an exempt industry. We've been working 24/7 in Billerica around the clock to be able to address unmet medical needs, even in the face of this pandemic. The drug discovery in Billerica has actually fueled new approvals in the United States for cancers, including certain skin cancers, renal cell, kidney cancers, bladder cancers in that context, and also for our multiple sclerosis franchise, which has been long at work in the area, a recent phase 3 development fueled in development coming from Billerica. So just around the corner from all of the neighbors here. We're working 24/7 to apply ourselves to that area. My own role is actually twofold. I'm the scientific site head at Billerica, so that means I integrate, I communicate, and I mentor across the 3 scientific disciplines. They're devoted to drug discovery. That's immunology, immuno-oncology, and oncology. These are related disciplines. I'm also a molecular immunologist by training. Don't let that scare you. And that means that my focus in particular is autoimmune diseases, including MS, neurological diseases as well. So as I said, I'm very much happy to be here and to entertain the dialogue, but very much preaching to the converted, that where we are in Billerica and Middlesex County is the place to be and where things are really happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And how about from you, John, John Moscow over at EMD Millipore? It's Millipore Sigma now, right? Or?
It's yeah, Millipore Sigma. I think you know. So yeah, John Moscow. I'm as Julie, you know, I think introduction said, you know, I'm representing the life science division of EMD Millipore, or Millipore Sigma, which is our sort of our trade name right now, and certainly the big sign hanging off our building. I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to go up 128 and actually see it, but it's pretty obvious when you do. And so I manage an R&D team at the headquarters here in Burlington, right? And in addition to our headquarters here, we also have a large R&D campus in Bedford, which is focusing on our biopharmaceutical manufacturing technologies, and also a manufacturing site up in Danvers. So, you know, we actually have quite a bit of presence here in addition to the pharmaceutical, you know, business that Julie's supporting. And so, you know, when I look at the life science division, it's you know, it's very different than the pharmaceuticals, right? And I think, as Julie said, we're a tool provider for the scientific community, right? We provide all the necessary instrumentation, devices, reagents that enable research, pharma, and various applied markets that we also support, such as food and bev, and industry, environmental, right? To really do the research that they need to do, perform the testing, and actually manufacture, you know, critical, you know, therapy and treatments that, you know, we'll all come to expect, right? And so, you know, while much of our business is in supplying the basic tools that everyone uses daily, such as just like filtration devices, assays, reagents, bioreactors, you know, cells, media, biochemicals. I mean, we have a huge business, okay? we also really have an eye to the future, and we really want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of where life science field is going. We have substantial programs in continuous and automated bioprocessing platforms, novel gene editing tools. Matter of fact, Sigma, the Sigma Aldrich business that we acquired several years ago, actually has one of the largest portfolios in gene editing and around CRISPR. So, I mean, we have a substantial presence in that. We're interested in advanced chemical synthesis, in-depth data processing and analytics, right? So it's very broad. We supply a very broad portfolio. We have a broad range of customers, and our company requires a very broad range of capabilities in order to support that. In terms of expansion, we've a lot of our expansion in our organization, when you get to be our size, tends to be in acquisitions. And so, the real reason why we are here in this Boston area is talent. Bob, you kind of highlighted that, but it's also the access to the technology, both from an academic and biotech standpoint, right? We can't do it all. We can't focus on every hot area that's existing, right? And so what you really need is a core group of companies and researchers that are focusing on those things and providing those early stage development and identification of opportunities. And then companies like ours can come in, we can basically bring them into our organization and really help them commercialize those technologies. So, but it's really critical to be nearby all those capabilities and technologies. So, and what really makes my job fulfilling, Bob, I think, actually, I love this story, right? It's really hearing stories of people like you who've had their lives impacted by the research that scientists do and pharmaceutical companies are do. And while I haven't had necessarily any impact specifically on actually the development of the drugs and the manufacturing of those drugs, I guarantee you that every lab out there has had some sort of millipore sigma product, in their workflows or as part of their efforts that's enabled them to do this type of research. And I think that's actually what's really quite satisfying to me. So happy to be here. I'm really, looking forward to the discussion today. So thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right. Thank you, Julie, and thank you, John. And when we're selling Massachusetts, the proximity to the technology is so important. You're right, the talent and the technology. We had the opportunity to do a ribbon cutting late last year on the first 100% digitally automated manufacturing facility in the world. And when we walk through there, and John, you'll get a kick out of this, and it wasn't just the millipore sigma products that were in there. There were other companies, like little ones like Thermo Fisher too. But when you looked around, every single piece of equipment that we came across was from here in Massachusetts, right? That is so important. That is so important. So Roger, why don't we go to you now, representing UCB?
Thanks, Bob. That's great. I just want to say thank you very much for the invite to participate today. Really looking forward to it. I want to echo what you said, Bob, and also Julie and John, why we're here. And it's about the talent. And as for those of you who don't know UCB, we're a global pharmaceutical company. We're based in Belgium, but we're rapidly expanding in the US. UCB's mission is to create unique experiences for patients with severe disease. At the moment, predominantly in immunological and neurological disease, and now into bone musculoskeletal disease as well. And these are high impact medicines. And to do that, like as John just said, it takes a lot of effort and we can't do it alone. And that's why we put ourselves in Boston. Around the world, we're 7,500 people. In the US, we're about 1,400 people. And now we're about just over 130 in Massachusetts. And that started properly in 2017 with the acquisition of a structural biology, protein biochemistry company where I'm sat today in Bedford on Wiggins Avenue in Preston Court, where we're investing in high quality protein production, expression, and now very excitingly, next generation therapeutics, and that's gene therapy. We're building a gene therapy vector core here. So we're looking at the talent in the Boston area that is very well placed to help us on that mission to generate the next generation of therapeutics for patients. And we're very excited to be able to do that in partnership with university. We've had a long-standing relationship with Harvard. We obviously have well-known partnership with Biogen in severe immunological disease, and we want to expand that. And now we're really accelerating what we do in Massachusetts with our recent acquisition of Ra Pharma just down the road in Alewife. And we see how that can all come together to really create a critical mass for UCB to create a third research and development hub. We have one in Brussels, we have one in the UK, in Slough, and now we're going to build one here in Boston. And that is for the single reason of talent, and that's talent that we can have people coming in working for UCB, and that's talent we can work with on a day-to-day basis with very minimal barriers, talent in hospitals, talent in other biotechs, talent in other tech companies, talent in data science. All of that we can access. We've got experience here in Boston like nowhere else. People who have been there and done that in making drugs. Venture capitalists, even if we're not actually buying their companies, just working with them, talking to them helps us understand the right place to go. So we're super excited, and we're super excited about what we can do in the Middlesex area here for the reasons you said, Bob. This is where people live. This is where people want to get to. You know, getting into Cambridge on a day-to-day. I started 5 years ago in Massachusetts in Kendall Square. I know how tough it is. I used to have to come in super early in the morning to beat that traffic. You know, that's not going to work for everybody. So I think, we can have a great discussion in a minute on what it takes to create a great area here in Middlesex for life sciences.
Thank you, Roger. Those are great points. And now we'll go over to Yvette Halal at Lantheus Medical Imaging. You still muted, Yvette? Can you hear us, Yvette? Yeah, we can't hear you. Doesn't look like you're on mute. Is your headset plugged in appropriately?
This is Erin. I'll take a look and see if it's something on our end through Zoom. If you want to jump ahead and
yeah, let's
come back.
Okay, why don't we move on? Yvette, we're not going to leave you hanging. We're going to come back to you. We're going to work out this technical difficult, and while we do, we're going to jump over to Jessica at Instrumentation Laboratory, IL.
Great, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Middlesex 3. We're proud to help sponsor this event today. For those of you who don't know, Instrumentation Laboratory, and we're known as IL, was founded in Massachusetts in 1959. So we're a 60-year-old company. We develop medical instrumentation that's used in hospitals and laboratories, and we manufacture right here in Massachusetts in our facility in Bedford. So that was a question that came up earlier that we can talk more about a little further on. One of the things that we have been very busy with is COVID. We have a line of instruments called the GEM Premier, and they're point of care instruments, so pretty small, and they can be in hospital operating rooms, NICUs, ICUs, things like that. So commonly when people are intubated, which unfortunately has been happening obviously with COVID, people who are intubated need to have their blood tested regularly to see the different gas saturations of oxygen and different things. So our instrument is heavily used for that. We didn't shut down at all. We've been going 2 shifts. I wouldn't want to say 24/7, but it's pretty close. Certainly 7, just not 24. In our facility here in Bedford and in Devens, Massachusetts, where we use as a distribution center. And we have been, very busy cranking out instruments and trying to help the current pandemic. So we've been really busy with that. What I would like to do, though, is tell you a very brief story. And that's going to dovetail into our educational partners at Middlesex Community College and UMass-Lowell, because we work very closely with them. I can proudly tell you that I have many employees, but I'm only going to tell you 2, who have benefited from the local education opportunities. So we're based here in Bedford. Many of you have heard me tell over the years, about 20% of our workforce lives in Lowell, Mass. A lot of these people are more recent immigrants, or maybe come from families that don't have anyone who's been through college or knows how those systems work. So we actually have many people who do this. I'm going to tell you about 2 who started assemblers on the manufacturing floor. Those are not really entry-level jobs because we do advanced manufacturing, so they do take a good skill set, technical skill set. But through classes that they both took at Middlesex Community College, they were able to, in one case, go on to BU and get a Bachelor's of Science degree. And in the other case, they're at UMass-Lowell with you, Julie, not really with you, but with you, IT courses. And both of them have moved into other roles in our company. One moved to quality assurance and the other one is in our IT department. And we have many stories like that, which is why I'm sort of illustrating it, because one of the things we're doing with Middlesex, and full disclosure, it was their idea, not ours, but we're using it, is we have a thing called pre-reimbursement, where we have employees who can take classes at Middlesex. We will pay Middlesex directly at the end of their course. So what's nice about that is there's no cost of entry for the employee, which could be prohibitive for people, even at the very reasonable prices at MCC. So it's meant that people who are interested in continuing their education can immediately start taking classes with no out-of-pocket, and as long as they get a good degree, you know, they get to keep going. I mean, a good grade, they get to keep going. So it's been really beneficial. I have dozens of employees in this program, and it's working really well. So we're grateful to MCC for that.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And now we're going to go back to you, Yvette. Do we have you?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
We do.
Yay.
You sound great.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I'm very happy to be here. Yvette Halal, I'm head of HR at Lantheus, and I have been with Lantheus only for 5 months. But prior to Lantheus, I've had a 25-plus year career in HR, primarily in healthcare or life science related companies. I joined Lantheus from Philips North America. I was with Thermo Fisher Scientific for a lot of years. I was with Merck. I was J&J, Pfizer. So honestly, over the years, I, even though HR can pretty much work anywhere, I have really leaned into life sciences companies because I, have experienced the impact that they can have even on a personal level. So that's always been my choice to work in the life sciences area. And there's no better place than here. I moved to this area from Florida about 6 years ago. I live in Westford. And the funny thing is, when I was doing this job search that got me to Lantheus, I had another offer at the same time with another company, not to be named, in Cambridge. And I chose Lantheus in part because of the location in North Billerica, because this is a great place to live and play and raise a family. So for me, the choice was really clear. So a little bit about Lantheus. We are headquartered in North Billerica. We have more than 600 employees between Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Canada, and Puerto Rico. We have about 400 in Massachusetts. And it's a company that's been around for more than 60 years. It started as New England Nuclear and then went through a series of acquisitions and name changes. And we're one of the original founders of the Boston life science ecosystem. So we're a company that's been around for a while, but we're also up to really great and interesting new things and new journeys. We have state-of-the-art manufacturing in our North Billerica campus, including production of radioisotopes that are used in diagnosing cardiac and cardiovascular diseases, pulmonary embolisms, and other conditions. And we are expanding our manufacturing facilities right there on the North Billerica campus, and it's going to enable us to expand the production of our key contrast agent, DEFINITY. And we're growing, we're adding something like 20 jobs as a result of that. Some of those have already been hired, but we are expanding here in our North Billerica campus. And even beyond that, because we've just completed an acquisition in mid-June of Progenics Pharmaceuticals, a nuclear medicine innovator, which was headquartered in New York City. So this is a key step for us in our growth and in our evolution to go from being strictly more of a diagnostics-focused company to a company focused also on therapeutics. So I'm very excited to be part of the Lantheus family. It's a great company and a great location, and I'm very pleased to meet all of you and be part of this exciting group. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and we're glad that you decided to relocate here. And that's what it's all about, people. And as we shift right now to go towards to hear from the panelists that represent academia, it's really, really, really important that we can, especially now during a pandemic. We all know that our academic institutions are facing very challenging times right now due to this pandemic. One of the things that keeps us up at night, I know it keeps me up at night, is that, you know, you heard me throw out the stat of how many academic institutions we have here in Massachusetts. Well, a couple of years ago, I used to say 122. It's gotten smaller, right? Post-COVID-19. What's going to happen here, right? You know, it's when I talk to legislative leaders, whether it's in the administration, House or Senate here in Massachusetts or down in Washington, D.C., they always say, what do we need to worry about? Well, we need to worry about talent and academia. If our colleges and universities aren't in good shape, we have a headache, ladies and gentlemen, moving down the line. So we're really excited. I'm confident we're going to get through it. Because one of the things about, you know, I always say, and I hope I don't offend anyone here, but when we talk about the benefits of Massachusetts, we always benefit from our Yankee ingenuity, but our downside could be our Yankee arrogance, right? And our Yankee arrogance would be thinking everything's going to be okay, and we'll get through it. Well, Route 128 used to be the information highway for computer companies, right? And our Yankee arrogance got the best of us, and they left. Well, if we don't continue to focus on nurturing academic institutions, academic medical centers for NIH funding, we're not going to have the science that recruits and attracts the Lantheuses and the ILs and the Millipore Sigmas and the Seronos and the UCBs of the world, okay? So now I hope I just set the stage a little bit more. We're right on time, folks. Even with me being bloviating at the beginning of this thing, we're still on time. So I want to go now, I'll go to Phil Sisson and Middlesex Community College. And I remember when I was still in government, okay, before I became a recovering politician and joined the dreaded private sector over here at MassBio, which has been awesome, by the way. I remember the role that Middlesex Community College played in us winning Bristol-Myers Squibb, going to Fort Devens, going to Devens up there. And it really is, these next two panelists are going to tell us a little bit about their product and what we need to do to continue to be successful. So Phil, why don't we go to you first at MCC?
Thanks, Bob. Thanks to you and Jessica for the best commercial we could possibly have. We ought to videotape that and use it for the institution going forward. It's an honor for me to be here with this distinguished panel, especially our amazing industry leaders who are doing groundbreaking work every day in this field, and Julie Chen at UML, who's just an amazing partner. The partnership between Middlesex and UMass-Lowell is one of the strongest in the state, and we work very closely together. In fact, Julie, I think we're doing some COVID testing as well in this busy time. So I also want to say that we've been doing this for the last 50 years. The college is 50 years old this year, so we're excited about that anniversary and celebrating it virtually. But our main mission, obviously, is to create a talent pipeline. But what we do is we do that in a very unique and groundbreaking way at Middlesex as well. We're an open access institution. We take all students. And what we really try and do is make sure that a good percentage of the students who are undecided in their careers consider pathways that are going to be successful for them. Oftentimes they've had math or science experiences in high school or prior to coming to the college, or as returning adults for retraining that have not been successful. But what Middlesex is really amazing at is being able to make sure that those students have the prerequisite skills to be successful in the workforce today. So what's really, Bob has pointed out, but it's pretty clear, you have a world-class university right in your region, you have a nationally recognized community college, and because of that, we really can create a partnership here that's very unique in this region, and we should take advantage of it. Middlesex offers career programs and transfer programs, which means we can get students right out in the workplace through a certificate in biotechnology, working on the floor, as has been described. We also have an associate of science degree, both in biotechnology and in biology, that leads students to a career further along in life sciences if they immediately want to transfer the institution. We've been very fortunate that we were able to steal away from Northeastern University 30 years ago, Dr. Mary Lucy Bladen, who is still with us today. Many of you on this call know who that is. She is a force to be recognized within the biotech community. She has really done amazing work, and all I can say is that she is not only an incredible scientist and an incredible faculty member, but she's also an incredible mentor for the students that we serve. She's one of our original faculty members in the program. We have 3 full-time faculty, and we have 4 adjunct faculty that work in the program, and we have over 100 biotech students each year. You can get a certificate or an associate's degree at Middlesex for a very reasonable cost, as has also been mentioned, but you can do that in a new state-of-the-art facility thanks to a Mass Life Sciences grant of $3 million that we received many years ago that we're going to be opening, probably virtually, in some kind of ribbon cutting this fall on the 5th floor of our Talbot building in Lowell. We are, and we always say that we are, a majority minority program. That means that 65% of the students that are enrolled in our biotechnology programs are minority students. So we are not only an exceptional talent pipeline, but we are a pipeline for diversity, both for the university and directly for a lot of the industries and partners that we talk about working with within the industry. The program was established in 1990 with 25 students, and we have graduates that represent everybody at all levels in biotech industry, including vice presidents, directors, managers, and supervisors. But as we've said, they start off as laboratory technicians in various departments and have included areas like production support, validation, manufacturing, process operation, and quality control. The program has been recognized here at Middlesex in the sense that we have a National Science Foundation partnership with Northeastern University for an associate to master's degree. So we also provide opportunities for students to get paid while they go to school and complete their bachelor's and master's degree at Northeastern. We have a number of students that do that. We also have students that transfer incredibly successfully to UMass-Lowell. What's been vital about the program is it's a hands-on program. Our students are trained in valuable hands-on skills. They've been hired consistently at a variety of companies, many which are on this Zoom today, certainly in and outside of the Middlesex area. We really focus on laboratory practices and in laboratory techniques. And our key component of the work that we do is making sure that students, even after some of their initial courses, immediately can go out into the workforce and take on internships. One of the most exciting things we're working on now is an opportunity to work with industry partners to create a learn and earn experience. So many of our students are actually working to support their families, as you well know, based on the fact that we serve a significant number of African American and Hispanic students. Those students oftentimes are working out to make sure, and they're working in retail and they're working in other areas. This new Learn and Earn program is an opportunity for them to work in the industry that they will eventually be able to have a career in. So they have an opportunity to do that 20 to 40 hours a week while they are completing their scheduled classes. And we have now moved our academic schedule to be able to accommodate those students so that while they are in the industry, they can complete their associate's degree and continue that pathway to a baccalaureate and a master's degree. The last piece I want to mention that's really important that Jessica talked about is that the college not only does traditional, what we would say, programs for students entering the institution, we also do a lot of retraining for adults. And so the Workforce Training Fund that's administered by the Commonwealth Corporation with $21 million entrusted to the state to do this. The funding is designed to help employers that pay into an employer tax fund or unemployment insurance. Many of you are familiar with this. But whether it's the Express Fund or the General Fund, this program can help all the employers that are on this Zoom that are part of the biotech industry to provide professional development for their employees. And we clearly, as has been said, work with employers to write and administer those grants and have been able to bring over $4 million to companies in the region. So if people are interested in workforce training grants, please don't hesitate to contact myself or Judy Burke, who also is a key member of the Middlesex 3 Coalition.
Thank you so much, Phil. And before we go over to Julie, I just want to add in, you brought up the Massachusetts Life Science Center and the grants and the initiatives that came in the first life science initiative, as well as the second that the current administration has acted on. I can tell everybody in the audience right now, I've been involved with the Mass Life Science Center since the legislation passed. You know, I was actually in the House when they started crafting it. If it weren't for that part of government stepping up, we wouldn't have recruited 18 of the top 20 pharma companies to come here. We wouldn't have enhanced our public higher education system the way we have. We wouldn't have the workforce or science taking place in Massachusetts that we have. So it's important, I think it's important to note that. And when we switch over to Julie Chen from UMass-Lowell, you think about what's going on at M2D2. When you look at how we're creating companies from innovation's great, but if you don't take that innovation and turn it into a company, it doesn't create jobs for the people we're talking about, and it doesn't promote the economy. So when you look at UMass-Lowell and the role that they have played, not just in this region, but across the Commonwealth, especially in the area of diagnostics and devices, et cetera, a big broad spectrum of the life sciences industry, we wouldn't have been able to do it without UMass-Lowell. So Julie, it's great to see you, and it's great to hear from you today.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. That's great. And certainly I echo all of the things you're saying. It's so key to the state, this government, academia, industry partnership, and really pulling together so that we can move things forward. And the M2D2 is a great example. Mass Life Sciences invested in that. We have a bunch of corporate partners, J&J, Boston Scientific, Amgen, Hologic, trying to do the kinds of things that John Moscow talked about, right? Looking for those innovations and helping to foster those innovations to the point where they might get acquired by some of the big companies in the state. And so it's an example of how we can all work together to accelerate these discoveries, moving into real things that can help patients. But let me take a step back and talk. The primary focus today, right, is talent. And Phil said it so well. We are fortunate in this region that between Middlesex and UMass-Lowell, we can cover that continuum from your entry level all the way to your PhD scientist, and help work with companies to make sure that your employees continue to increase their knowledge. Things are changing so quickly now that it's important that we work with you to provide flexible ways for the employees to continue to progress, gain new knowledge, get new degrees if they want, but if they don't want to commit to a whole degree, get a workshop, do a certificate, do sort of small pieces to help them do their job better and to progress in their career. As part of the UMass system, we obviously have a big focus in the STEM field. We graduate over 4,000 students every year, again, bachelor's, master's, and PhD. Half of those, more than half of those, are in the STEM field. And you've heard some of those areas already. Obvious ones for life sciences: biomedical engineering, biological sciences, pharmaceutical sciences, but also very heavily now computer science, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and on the business side, probably another 1,000 graduates in the operations, information systems, data analytics, right? So that's over 4,000 graduates every year of students that really want to stay in this region. And so to your point, Bob, we're trying to get them to be able to have jobs in this region and not have to do a 3-hour daily commute into Boston if they can help it, right? So anything we can do to work with the companies that are part of Middlesex 3, we're a proud partner of Middlesex 3, to help the economic development in this region is really critical. The only other thing I would add is, just like Phil said, our students, we focus on a hands-on education. Our co-op program is something that we very much value, the partnership with industries. Without you as companies taking on our students, hopefully it's a great way for you to try out our students, but it's also a great way for our students to understand where they're going once they graduate, and it helps them in their academic preparation. We also have students, so actually several of the companies here, I know our students have worked at Millipore and at Instrumentation Lab and Lantheus while getting their degrees. It's a great experience. And then also the other piece that we do and we focus on is we try to get our students experience in the research labs, in our core research facilities while they're getting their degrees. So it's not just a classroom experience. We have a core research facilities that's available for outside companies to utilize, but our students also get an experience in how to work in a clean room, how to use gene sequencing, how to use a lyophilizer, right? How to work in a microfab. These are all experiences that are available to companies, but then also are great experiences for our students, and the input from the companies in terms of what skill sets are valuable is also important for that effort. So I think just to close, because I know we got a lot of great Q&A to go, the talent base that we have between Middlesex and UMass-Lowell, the availability of top-notch technical facilities that are great training, but also opportunities for our companies to utilize, and then the ability of entities like M2D2 and Innovation Hub to help work with companies to translate those discoveries from our research labs into practice. Those are all things that are part of this ecosystem in the Middlesex 3 region. So thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Julie, and thanks, Phil. That's awesome, all right? Let's go to the industry, folks. We have two rock stars for the world of academia sitting with us here in this virtual seminar. We've all acknowledged that the industry is changing real quickly, right? We've gone from straight R&D, small molecule drugs, to large molecule drugs. Then we got into precision medicine, and now cell and gene therapy. And now we're talking about digital health, wearables, IT, right? This is all happening quickly than a graduate of Dedham High School and the Massachusetts Maritime Academy can keep up with. Okay, so it's happening so quick. The question to industry is our education curriculum keeping up with the pace of the industry changes? So I want to hear from industry first. Do you think it's keeping up? And if so, and if not, what types of cross-training is the most beneficial? Julie talked a lot about co-op internship. We need to be doing more of that. And then we're going to roll it into diversity, equality, and inclusion. How do we do it for underserved communities? But we'll get to that next. So let's stick with, okay, let's go to you, Jessica, and then let's have a show of hands and we'll go from there. Jessica, you're on.
Thank you. So I have my M2D2 mug right here. I think it's a nice example of what we need to be doing to get students ready. I think co-op cannot be underestimated. For me, the types of students that I want to hire are, I don't want to say hard to find, but they're very specific. So people who are going to come look at us, no offense to any other companies, but they're not going to go look at Google and those guys. It's just very different what we do. We physically make instruments, right? So it's different. So for me, having co-ops, we have a space in the Innovation Center with Tom O'Donnell. I know he's on. Any of those interactive opportunities, I think, is massively important for students. Full disclosure, I have a 22-year-old. She's at Northeastern. No offense to my friends here on the phone. And the whole point of that is co-op. Right? You got to get your hands dirty. You got to get into it. You got to see what you like, because education is expensive, right? And hiring is expensive. So unless we're finding people that are a really good fit and they've tested it out, then frankly, it's a waste on both ends. So I think it's really important for colleges to do this evolution that they've been doing with, you know, like the new center, Phil. I think I'm supposed to buy light bulbs or something for you guys, which we haven't done that yet, but we'll get to it. I think the whole thing there is, you know, having that collaborative talk about what kinds of things would be beneficial for me, you know, and what kinds of things the students would be interested in. Because full disclosure too, anyone's going to really enjoy getting in, getting dirty, learning what they're going to be doing versus it being a surprise when they show up, right? So I think gone are the days of, I'm going to go bury myself on a pretty campus with trees for 4 years and not have any idea what's happening in industry. I think, to be fair, that's gone.
Got it. All right, Roger, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Jessica, that's great. I'll really echo what you're saying. You know, we really value having people come in, interns, and now we're about to start on a bit of a plug here, a co-op program here, building on what they've done successfully, our great new colleagues at Ra Pharma. It is with Northeastern to start with, but Julie and Phil, let's see what we can do to connect in the future to get your folks into UCB as well. And, you know, I often have thought, you know, lots of people have lots of good ideas, but actually, like you said, Bob, it's about how do you innovate. And innovation for us is making that actual a practical reality. For us, it's actually having people come in and do the job. And there's nothing better than doing it hands-on and actually learning. And so much in biotech is about operations, and that's lost. And, you know, like I say, people have a lot of good ideas, but it's the operations folks who make it happen. So, you know, and you only really learn that on the job. You know, you can't really do a course in biotech operations. So please get people to come in and see what it's like and learn. And yeah, it's great. I would also say, just in terms of other areas, if I've got a second, you know, I worry about in some universities, and I've seen it around the world, it's not just around here, is we're losing that core STEM and you know, skill set. And in particular in fundamental mathematics, fundamental physics, you know, and other parts of the world are going well ahead of us here. And if we lose that base, that expertise, and people become too general, then we're going to lose as a country. So
Yeah.
we have to speak to the schools. It starts in schools and in higher education to really get and keep people focused on those core scientific, mathematic courses, which for many aren't so interesting. You know, when you can go and do media studies, you can do social media and all that stuff. You know, but we're going to miss if people can't do maths and physics and those kind of core chemistry. You know, yeah. Go.
Absolutely. Great point, Roger. And that's the mission of the Massachusetts Biotechnology Education Foundation, is to really work on getting kids excited about STEM, you know, in the high school age. And we have to go even earlier. We have to. Yvette, you had your hand up. What are your thoughts?
I did, yeah. I just want to make sure I have a chance to go before I have to drop off as well. But
You got it.
agree more, Roger. I think it starts even earlier in high school education and even before that. But yeah, since I'm new at Lantheus, what I thought I would do is poll our leadership team to see, hey, what are some of the skills that are really critical for you that you'd like to see in the pipeline of students that are coming from these colleges and universities? And they highlighted a few things, so I want to make sure I get them out there. So what they said was is really key is an understanding of the regulatory environment, especially with the FDA, good manufacturing practices and understanding and basic knowledge of that, statistics, mathematics, technical writing, critical thinking, just because of the complexity of the world in general these days. And it's funny, along with that, somebody said something interesting, which I hadn't heard before, which was just resilience. Just resilience to deal with the complexity of industry, of life, of the world, kind of that mental toughness that is required in so many aspects of life. I think I said critical thinking, ability to collect, collate, and synthesize different perspectives, and diversity, definitely diversity, and not just diversity in terms of are the students themselves of a diverse background from a demographic standpoint, but do they understand diversity of thought, diversity of perspectives? Can they put that together and synthesize it? And anyway, I thought it was great input from the team. I couldn't have said it better myself. I hope that's helpful.
No, you know, that is very helpful. I mean, and we're seeing the same thing when you look through when we're forecasting what are the future jobs and what are the needs. Regulatory and GMP were the top two. You know, so I mean, we're right on there. And resilience, I love that, right? That's what's required during times like this. And everybody knows solving unmet medical needs. If you're not resilient, you're not going to be successful, right? It's challenging. Julie, what did you have to add to it?
So I'd like to just emphasize the I think benefit of even micro rotation. So we don't have to be talking necessarily of long-term internships, summer internships, weeks-long internships, sometimes just several days, so that the students can actually see what impact they can have, what role they can play in the industry to establish those networks that allow them to do outreach as they reach pivotal points in decision making. I think in that circumstance also for whether to continue their education, stop with a bachelor's, go on for a master's, do they need a PhD, so that they really have a better appreciation for what they can do. And then I would turn it back actually to our esteemed academic colleagues to say, do they feel that the curriculum is actually keeping up? So if you're teaching cell biology, are you teaching tissue culture or are you teaching organoid culture, 3D organoid cultures in that circumstance? Are you teaching protein engineering and manufacturing for designer biologics? Are you teaching continuous manufacturing? Because that's where the field is actually going. So I think that's where the dialogue could be, to make sure that there's no disconnect of what we feel we need on the industry side and what academia feel they're teaching in preparation for going into industry. So I hope that helps also from that perspective.
Very helpful. John, why don't we go to you, and then we'll get rebuttal from Julie and then Phil, because Julie Chen, you have a hard stop at 1 as well, correct? Perfect. Over to you, John Moscow.
No, and I think, you know, I would say most people highlighted similar points that I would have said too, and certainly would reinforce. But, you know, and I think both Phil and Julie had mentioned a couple of things that just brought, you know, to my mind a couple of things. So, you know, number one, you know, for us, often what we see is academics is actually where the innovation is happening, right? And so I think a lot of when we're looking for new technologies, we actually look at the academics because, you know, they have the freedom to kind of be a little more adventurous sometimes than, you know, somebody that's got a VC company backing them looking for, you know, to drive to a specific purpose. But what I do see that I think probably could use benefit definitely on the academic side, is on the business piece, right? Is combining the technology and the business. And it's also providing an understanding to the academics on what companies are looking for when, you're looking at new technologies, right? And so I think, having the ability, people can identify things, but how do you package it? How do you sell it? And what are the key elements that are going to be looking for from a corporate standpoint in terms of evaluating and thinking about what technologies to bring in? So just it's something to build on there.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Julie, why don't you add any feedback you have on that from the academic standpoint, because we only have you for about another 4 minutes or so, and then we'll go to Phil.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, and ironically, I have to jump off because I have to go to a Mass Life Sciences Center meeting. But so John,
Well, could you tell them all the nice things I said?
I will definitely.
I have about 6 clients right now looking for tax credits, so tell them all the nice things I said.
Will do. And John, it's great to hear that from you, and also from Julie and the other folks. Certainly, I think there is a lot of opportunity on both those areas, both the co-op and internship. And I like the idea of maybe thinking about some micro rotations across multiple companies here. I think the other thing that we could benefit from is those conversations with industry, because as I often say, we have brilliant researchers and they could work on 10 different projects. But if we connect them with you and you say, out of those 10 projects, well, if you could solve number 2 and 4, we'd be really excited about that. And we could maybe follow up with some additional funding. That's the type of thing where we can work together and accelerate challenges forward by helping to identify where are the key areas that you're missing, either from the research side or from the I love the regulatory, manufacturing, operations. Those are things that are not as common, but we're recognizing that those are things that are valuable for you as employers.
Wonderful, wonderful. In all seriousness, though, Julian, you are going to talk to the Massachusetts Life Science Center. The key differentiator, all right? Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. We've had these colleges and universities for a long time. We've had 5 of the top 6 NIH-funded hospitals in this area for a long time. We've been smart, wicked smart, right, in Massachusetts for a long time. What changed back in 2006 and 2007 that enabled us to become a top 10 life science cluster to the undisputed best life sciences cluster in the world? The thing that changed was government. Government became our partner. And it's not Democrat or Republican, because believe it or not, it started with the Life Science Center, started with Mitt Romney. Deval Patrick doubled down on it, Republican to Democrat. Charlie Baker then took a look at it and said, geez, let's do another 5 years at $500 million. That's better than 10 years at $1 billion, because you can change it and make it different as the industry innovates. The only difference between our region and California and some other hot regions in the country is that government is our partner. Don't ever forget that. It trickles right down to local government. I was a selectman in Dedham. I was on the school committee, board of selectmen, House of Representatives. I'm a town meeting member now. I think I've had every position in government, right? If you're not a partner to industry, industry will not choose that municipality. They will go somewhere else. These are important lessons, and it's great. So thank you, Julie. Now we're going to go over to you, Phil.
Thanks, Bob. I just want to mention a couple of things the other panelists have said. Number one is, thank you for all of the work that many of you do by serving on our advisory board. So in essence, community college curriculum can only be designed with partners from industry in order for it to be successful. And so we have a very robust biotech advisory board. We would welcome additional members, so there's a plug for that. And the ability to be able to share changes in curriculum or as we are making revisions based on your input, based on what I've heard today, and they've taken many notes about some other areas we need to focus on, is that's so critically important, but we need your professional time to really help us. And those advisory boards meet once a semester in order to help support, and we review the curriculum at that time to make sure that that we're providing for you the kind of technicians that you really need. The second piece that I want to mention is that Yvette and Roger have both pointed out the importance of basics about chemistry, biology, math, physics, and how critical that is and that's the foundation of what we do at Middlesex. It's what we do best. It's what our faculty do best. They're remarkable at, to be able to provide that foundation that students either didn't get in high school or they never got exposed to in a way that was meaningful to connect them to a career. And so the state legislature has given us STEM Starter Academy money, so we've been able to do that. So using all of you as connections are really important as speakers for STEM Week, as opportunities to talk to early level classes so that we create aspiration in our young people, specifically our diverse students that we are serving. And the last that I want to mention that Yvette also talked about is this partnership with high schools and why it's so important to get down deeper and earlier. So we have 25 partner high schools that we work with at Middlesex. We do concurrent and dual enrollment. We have early college programs. We are trying to provide those STEM college courses that they can use in high school and use in college to give them a jump start at being successful at the community college or at any four-year institution they go to. So that partnership of making sure those basics are taught very early on in the process is critically important. And we're doing that work with the high schools, and we need to continue to do that work. So, and the last is any internships, and the micro-rotation idea is a great one. Exposing students to what you all do every day and the passion that you bring to your work and how it impacts real people. We have tons of people that want to be nurses, right? And they want to be nurses because they want to help people. They have no idea what they can do in other fields to be able to help people. And biotechnology is such a key, groundbreaking area for students to be involved in. And yet we don't necessarily promote that as much as we possibly can. And so the more we can work with you to promote that for our young people, both in high school and at the community college level, we'd be well served in the region to do so.
Thank you so much, Phil. That's amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a new addition to the panel. Mr. Tom O'Donnell from UMass-Lowell is joining us. He runs the iHub. He's going to be stepping in to represent the university for the remaining 25 minutes that we're going to have for Q&A, and then we're going to use the last 5 minutes to wrap up. But this is the part of the afternoon where we want you all to type in questions. If they're good questions, I'm going to ask them. If they're way outside the box, I'm not. I'm kidding. We'll get to as many questions as we can. But the first comment, we did have a shout out from Sanjay at the Life Science Center. So guys, this day keeps getting better. We have people from the Life Science Center in the audience when we're saying all these wonderful things. And then Margot from the town of Bedford. She has a question. Are there any efforts, either from educational institutions or industry, to recruit from the neurodiverse community? So who would want to take that from either the academic or the industry side? John, do you want to go?
Sure. I mean, I think, I'm not sure I really have a good answer just focused on the neurodiverse community, but I think diversity in itself, and I'm going to be looking at it from actually the hiring standpoint, right? So, you know, I'm not involved in HR. Often, you know, when I have an opening, right, I post my job and we go to recruiters or we go to HR and they create a pool of candidates. We select from that pool of candidates. And so a lot of, you know, the perspective from, you know, an R&D view is, you know, we're faced with having to make a decision based on the pool of candidates that's offered to us. And so, you know, I don't necessarily have the ability to go out and poll. You know, I hope that, you know, my recruiters and HR are actually trying to do some of that. But, you know, I have to say that, you know, the challenge that I have is getting a diverse population or a diverse pool of candidates, right? So, you know, and I think it does go back to a lot of the things that we've talked about earlier in terms of getting earlier, right, in the education and focus, and to make sure that these, you know, diverse populations are getting the same baseline education and they're getting the same opportunities to come up through the system, such that, you know, when faced with having to hire, you know, people, right, that pool exists. And so, you know, it may be, again, on the manufacturing aspects, there maybe is some opportunity around neurodiverse, but, you know, for us, it's just, you know, the pool isn't necessarily there. So how do we get that pool more diverse?
Hey, and to the folks, I mean, ED&I has been a huge issue, and not just as of late. It's something that we've been working on as an industry for the past decade. Really, a lot of it started with gender diversity as it related to women in the C-suite and why that wasn't happening the way it should, and we've really attacked that. More broadly, as it relates to equality, diversity, and inclusion, we've really tackled it at MassBio. We even we were the first trade association in the country to hire a director of diversity, equality, diversity, and inclusion. And one of the first things and the coolest things that I've worked on since I've been here at MassBio was partnering with Life Science Cares, Massachusetts Life Science Center, and MassBio Ed Foundation, and we created Project On-Ramp. Because John, to your point, if you look at our workforce, a lot of these young people that look to get to work in the life sciences industry is because they knew about it. Mm-hmm. How do you know about it if your parents and great parents, how would you know about it if you had no exposure to it? How would you know about it if you're a first generation college student? So we created Project On-Ramp and encouraged our member companies to create summer intern programs directly for those types of candidates. And we partnered with Life Science Care and Bottom Line, and we're able to create internships for first generation college students, an extreme diverse population, and it was so successful. So if we don't continue to get to those students earlier, and I always say, people always say, well, we have a talent problem. Yeah, well, we're going to have a talent problem if we don't promote the life sciences to our entire population. Not just the kids in Westwood and Lexington and Sudbury. Right? I know that's a difficult thing to say, but let's if you want to change how things are, we have to change how we do things, and we're doing it. And I think Phil wants to talk about it, because if you look at the demographic of our community colleges, let's build that on-ramp so they can all come work here. Our HR departments, for altogether too long, would say to come work at my company, you'd have to have 5 years of experience. Well, how do we create that 5 years of experience without stealing from other companies? Right? Let's create that same way we want to have a bigger pipeline of candidates for blockbuster drugs. We need to increase our pipeline of workers, and that will make us more diverse. And I swear to God, it's a scientific fact, the more diverse any group, the better the outcome is. And there's nothing harder than curing a disease or coming up with a therapy of disease. So let's make sure that the people that work at our companies are diverse and they actually look like the community of patients that we want to serve. Again, I wish I could be a panelist all day long. I'm going to go to you, Phil. I apologize.
No, Bob, you've got it right. And the bottom line is the magic of what happens at a community college and the demographics of who we serve. But of course, that goes back to that high school pipeline, the idea of us working out with STEM academies in a number of high schools. It is part of what started our whole Learn and Earn program, which came through a private foundation, was this idea that so many of our students are exactly what industry needs. I mean, I think the life science industry is 80% white in terms of its workforce. And so we have an opportunity here to build and grow our own through what we do with UMass-Lowell and the pipeline that we create. But we have to introduce those students very early on in their certificate and associate degrees to the field, to get them excited about what the possibilities are, for them to see themselves in management responsibilities and opportunities in the workforce. They're workforce ready because we've made them that way. We have to make sure that we continue to support them and provide them with aspiration to see that they have a place in this industry. And so if there is no representation, it's very hard for them to see themselves in this industry. So we have to do everything we can to work with our STEM Starter Academy and the populations that we're serving to say there's a place for you. And even if that place is you begin at the beginning as a technician, you can see what the pipeline is and what the trajectory, like our program with Northeastern. How do you get a baccalaureate degree? How do you get a master's degree? How do you continue? And how do we support, like this NSF funding, how do we support those students to make sure they can continue to afford to get their baccalaureate degree and their master's degree? And those are all NSF grants that are being provided to our students who are part of that pipeline. So we have to be intentional about it, and I think it has to be very mission driven, but we need your support to help reach those students and create those aspirations for the field in the area.
All right, I'm going to go to Tom. It looks like you wanted to follow up on that, and then Julie DiMartino, we'll go to you after Tom to follow up on Phil's comment.
Yes, thank you, Bob. Just very quickly, as the discussion wraps around this, the whole idea of supporting that diverse community, neurodiverse or more traditional diverse characteristics, it really requires a different way of looking at things. And a big part of that is what we refer to on campus as wraparound services. So the traditional classroom experience, but in some of the things we touched on today, getting them out there and engaging and seeing new things, but also helping them to identify and experience and adopt and integrate those experiences in their educational experience overall. And one area that I'm very committed to and one that, in collaboration with industry, mentoring. Mentoring is such a key aspect of the educational experience traditionally, but also as we navigate these new waters, we've put in place many different programs, but we look forward to working with industry to expand in that area. And as you see, whether it be identifying the right career opportunities or getting those technologies from the lab into the real world, that mentoring aspect is a critical piece of that. Just wanted to put that in there.
Tom, those are great points. Thank you. Julie, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to echo a little bit of what Tom said, and I want a little bit perhaps of a mindset change here. So Bob, in the beginning, you said we're taking advantage of a sprawl that comes from Cambridge and Boston into this area. For diversity and inclusion, I'm going to argue the mindset change is the reverse sprawl. This is something that really can be engendered in Middlesex County and spread back into this is a huge, diversity and inclusion is a huge opportunity. I think in this circumstance, and from a mentoring perspective, I can just tell you within our organization, we have women in leadership sponsorships so that we pair individuals working very closely on a regular basis. Diversity, inclusion, mentoring circles now all virtual in that context. So the leadership actually rotates and then individuals have an opportunity, 3, 5, 10 in a chat room to meet different individuals who role model what they would like to be, who can learn from that experience in that circumstance. So that's what I would say. The opportunity is here. We shouldn't wait to take advantage of it. The virtual community can work just as well as face-to-face in this circumstance. And this is a place where I think Middlesex can actually lead in the context of what we're doing. So I leave you with that.
Thank you, Julie. I love that reverse sprawl. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? So the chat box is on fire right now, guys, as well as the Q&A area. So I'm going to try to manage this. To the audience, just know that everything that was printed out in the we will print out everything in the webinar chat to make sure that all the panelists see what you wrote. There's folks that are asking, have we reached out to Boys and Girls Club? There's a lot of great feedback from Cristo Ray. So we'll make sure that the panelists see all that. But I'm going to go to a question. Are there any models of municipalities that are leading partnerships to link residents from the high school level to local companies? I don't know of any. That's a great question. That's from Melissa. So do any of you know of any models of a town or city that is leading the partnership linking their constituents in high school to companies?
We don't do it here, but I can tell you at our site in the UK in Slough, they do it really well. So to link into high schools there and to the comprehensives, as they're called in England. So I think it can work really well, and if you get on board with the right community, and then you've got the leadership of the school, I think it can work really well.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Michelle, the pushback that we've seen in the past with creating internships, it's an age thing too. A lot of our member companies were adverse to putting students under 18 years old into the labs for environmental health and safety risk and liability, whatnot. But I will say that if you go check out the Mass Life Science Center, and this was really something that was coming from Lieutenant Governor Polito, they were trying to create internships at the high school level, and some companies have stepped up in a different way, in a different environment, so that they could achieve that. So great point. Thank you for the question. And Sanjay has said that the city of Worcester has done something similar like that with MBI, the Massachusetts Biomedical Initiative, and community initiatives. That's a good point. Good point. Okay. Any other questions right now? Or any other comments? Let's talk a little bit more about equality, diversity, and inclusion.
Okay. Make an additional comment. I wanted to shout out to MassBio also in the ed area, right, in terms of high school outreach. So MassBio actually arranged for us the interface with Chelmsford, the interface with Bill Ricca, right, so that the individuals could actually come from the biotechnology courses firsthand and see in that circumstance, and then adopt a mentor to be able to do that, so that I've been able to track over time who got inspired, who said they wanted my job. That's the most really the biggest compliment, I think, in that context. How they outdo the outreach once they transition, not only to college, but also to making that choice into master's degree versus PhD, as they choose the area of focus that they want to emphasize in that context, so that we're able to guide them all through the process. So it doesn't have to be physically hands-on, although it can in micro-rotations, but MassBio is doing a wonderful job on the education front in making those linkages, and each of us in our towns have had that opportunity. It's been very rewarding, and what I can also tell you, employees who trained at the same high school are able to do back outreach. So it's the moms and the dads now that work with us that are reaching back into their kids' high school community to be able to educate the next generation. It's important to emphasize it is going on, and shout out to MassBio for helping to make that happen.
It's great. Thank you for that. And it's funny, when I leave this event, I'm emceeing an event this afternoon, which is usually the annual MassBio Ed Golf Tournament, which we're not having because of COVID. So it's going to be a virtual comedy show. So I'm doing that this afternoon into this evening. So that will be fun. We got a great question, guy. This has been a big love fest. All right. We're all saying how wonderful the region is and how wonderful everybody is. Let's talk about some challenges. You know, when you're thinking, this is a great question from Scott Weiss. He's saying, you know, for industry reps, what are your coming growth needs, and what needs to happen to have that growth take place in the region, right? There's things that need to happen, right? It's not all rainbows and unicorns here. What would you say some of the challenges are moving forward?
Jump in there, Bob.
Yes, Roger.
First of all, one thing positive, I want to just shout out to the town of Bedford. Even during COVID, we were able to get one of our new lab suites going. Actually, John, one of your old colleagues, Ona Cash, who's now leading our vector core here, we did a virtual permitting here, which was great. So that was fantastic. They could have held us waiting for ages, but they realized the value of having a new innovative therapies unit here. So that was fantastic. One thing, okay, moan, I'm sure you mentioned it already, Bob, the traffic, the transport. You know, we're looking at where we're going to try and expand to. You know, we have lots of people now who don't want to get in a car. You know, they, for various reasons, cost, environment, they want public transport. It's great. We've got the bike path here coming up just next to us, which is fantastic. But we have to do more on transport, and that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, transportation. John, what are your thoughts?
I mean, cost of living. I think, you know, that
workforce housing,
transport, because, you know, what's happening is that in order to afford housing, people are having to move further away, which then creates additional transportation problems. So, you know, I think more and more of the people in my group, especially the earlier in career and younger people, right, they're buying houses that are out. Like I hear sometimes, oh, I bought a house, you know, up in you know, I don't know where, it's like an hour away, and you're like, wow, why'd you do that? And it's like, that's all we could afford. So, I mean, that is a challenge.
Yeah, Tom, you just chimed in as well in the chat. Affordable housing is a big issue. If you look at the 5-year strategic plan that we were scheduled to roll out in March here at Mass, our industry 5-year strategic plan, it's called the State of Possible 2025 report. The two big issues were going to be workforce housing and congestion, meaning infrastructure and traffic, right? As an industry, we've never made housing and transportation congestion an issue for us, but it is. It's a barrier to us continuing to grow. So we need to, as an industry and as leaders of industry and as employees of this industry and as economic development experts, we can't take our foot off the gas right now because the transportation issue is temporarily not an issue because of COVID. All right. We need to continue to focus on that, and we will. And then the other piece was workforce housing. When we recruit these large companies to come here to Massachusetts, they have challenges they can't just hire everybody here. You want to bring some people with you too. And it's been challenging to get people to move from other parts of the country when they see how much a house costs, right? This isn't affordable housing. This is workforce housing they can't afford, right? So again, these are things that we need to continue to focus on. Any other challenges let's talk specific, and I know nobody wants to say anything negative about the municipalities that they're in, but I'm a lifelong Dedham resident. I already told you I've held almost every office there. Dedham is very difficult to do business in because you have the town meeting form of government. Permitting is always an issue. You got the Concom, the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's almost like it takes you a year to meet with each committee. So these are issues, Roger, to hear you talk about a virtual permitting, I mean, that's like, that's music in my ears, right? To be able to do something like that. John, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just going to highlight regulatory also, right? I
Yeah.
think one of the big struggles that we're having is certainly laboratory regulatory policies are changing. We find that I think I spend more time dealing with our regulatory and quality groups now than 5 years ago. Now I'm not going to say there isn't good reasons for this. Our environment is extremely important, and it's a good focus on it, but it is creating challenges in terms of interpretations and policy changes, and so anything that could actually streamline that would be helpful too.
I guess the emphasis would be then to the folks that represent municipal government that are on this call. We need you. We appreciate you. And in our industry, time is money. The patients are waiting. It's about time. So anything, if it's going to take too long to put an opportunity into a town that I know is going to take too long, and that's why we started the BioReady Community Rating Program, because if you're not platinum or gold, chances are we're probably not going to bring any opportunities to your town. So, Tom, did you want to say something on that?
And just real quick, and kudos to Stephanie and team, changing the perspective to a regional perspective versus a municipal perspective.
Amen.
And that's why this area is doing what it's doing. And I know it's hard, but it's so important.
Tom, regionalism is a real thing. And let's look at that outside of Middlesex 3. If you look at the Massachusetts Life Sciences Corridor, which is the red line from Somerville, Chelsea, Boston, all the way down through to Braintree, they promote the region. You're not going to win all of them, but you'd rather it come to one of those municipalities. When we pitch these big ones, okay, the real big opportunities that they're looking all over the world, we sell New England. I don't even do it as Massachusetts and, Mass Life Science folks close your ears. But we sell it as New England because most of them end up coming here. But if we don't win it and Rhode Island does, that's regionalism. If we don't win it and Connecticut does, that's better than it going to Texas, California, or Singapore. Right? So regionalism is a real thing. We're stronger when we do that together. So kudos to the Middlesex 3 Coalition and all the amazing communities in it. There was one other question that I'm going to go here about ESL. Let me scroll up. I've heard that, where is it going here? I'm losing. Can you guys see that one? I scrolled all the way to the top.
Jaffrey, I think to highlight the Millipore
the
manufacturing plant.
Thanks, John.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, just just because that sort of comes to me. It's our life science business. We have a plant out there. Actually, it's a manufacturing plant. So I think in order to actually, we also have a manufacturing plant in Danvers, and both of these places have had substantial challenges in the workforce recruitment. And so in order to, basically broaden their pool, they've offered, ESL programs in both cases. And I'm not as connected with Jaffrey, but definitely Danvers. I know that it has been highly successful. And what it's done is it's also helped create actually a better loyalty of employees to the company. And it's less likely that you get the turnover when you put that effort in. So yeah, absolutely. It's something that, when it really is appropriate, you definitely should implement.
Yeah. And Bob, I mentioned the fact that the college does ESL really well. We have grant-funded programs in both Bedford and Lowell, and we work through our workforce development training club, the opportunity for training with ESL. We could partner with companies to do that and bring that to your industry. So.
Hey, thank you so much, Phil. And panelists, that's it for time. This has gone by so fast. I think we could go forever. I just want to thank all of you guys for everything that you do each and every day, whether it's on the economic development side, the industry side, the government side, the academic side. What makes Massachusetts the best place in the world for the industry are all of those components. And it's not just all of those components as individuals, it's all of those components working together. Again, just going back to my opening statements, when my son was born 18 years ago, we didn't think he'd make it 5 years. He's 18 years old now and thriving. He's not out of the woods yet, but with gene therapy, I think we're going to have gene therapy in his lifetime. I didn't think that 2 years ago because a therapy was invented that bought us more time. And when you think about how important this industry is and what it is that we do for everybody, everyone in humankind walking on the earth, it's truly, truly amazing. So if there's a lot of things we could try to be the best place in the world for, there's nothing better than the life sciences. I pinch myself every day because I think I have the best job and the best place in the world for this industry. And I didn't go to medical school, right? So when you think about it, we're all blessed to have this life sciences jewel right here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So let's make sure that we take care of it, we nurture it, we grow it, and we don't do anything stupid to screw it up. Okay, so those are my closing remarks. Thank you for having me. I'm going to hand it back to you, Stephanie. Thanks so much for all that you do. It's been an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. And I'm where to go. I'm going to give the round of applause now to you, Bob, to the panel. Thank you so much. I'm going to echo your points. Thank you so much for all the work that you guys do every day. But also thank you for the passion as well that I'm hearing from everyone. And I think there is a certain passion that people in the life science field do carry with them, and I do hear that. I'll tell you, we record these programs, and I've never gone back to rewatch them, but I think I need to do that with this one, because there's just so much information that you guys have put into this that we need to, it's now our responsibility to we've heard what you said and pick up what you've said and do something with that, and so we will. And Jessica, she's on my board, Tom's on my board, they're going to make certain that I stick to that as well too. So thank you for that. 2 points I do want to put, 1 point really that I want to put in there is Roger, you mentioned transportation. So we're going to connect with you and with Matt after, because we started a Transportation Management Association. We actually have grant funding that we need to spend in order to start another shuttle as well too in Bedford, the Bedford area. So we're going to connect with you, and hopefully we can try to address that too. If anyone else wants to join, we'd love to hear from you too. So there's a lot that we can do. I know I'm losing people as well too. So I think you all have to get back to work and make this region better. So thank you to everyone for all your work. Thank you for joining us today. Oh, and thank you to our sponsors. We couldn't do the meeting without you. Thank you to the BSC Group, to Instrumentation Laboratories, to Belfort Group. Great people to work with. Thank you for that. And and we also have upcoming meetings as well too. If anyone wants to attend, they're all on our website. We won't go through that, but please, we'd love to have you just continue to attend and be involved, because that's what it's all about, is just bringing people together and continuing the conversations. They're not easy. So with that, I guess we need to get back to work. Again, thank you all for everything, and have a great day.